the Conservative Party, obviously, traditionally is low taxation and low spending. So let's wait and see what he has to do. I think the big, one of the other very fascinating questions is what's going to happen to the cabinet now. I mean, this cabinet, ridiculously, some members of this cabinet have been in their posts for less than a week. Grant Shapps, the Home Secretary, may well be out of the door in less than a week, which would undoubtedly make him the shortest serving Home Secretary in the history of British parliamentary government. The Health Secretary, we think possibly Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, is likely to be retained in his post simply for the purpose of reassuring the financial markets. But the other posts, all bets are off, quite frankly, and he's going to have to impose his authority on a new cabinet and, by extension, a new government.
So you're expecting a lot of surprises right there on, would you say, the upside or the downside as far as the cabinet reshuffle is concerned? Because a lot of things are going to turn around on that front, Jonathan.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look, it's the mind boggles. There have been so many cabinet reshuffles and so many prime ministers over the last few weeks, if not years, that one almost forgets. I mean, Suella Braverman, who was this incredibly radical, hyper right-wing Home Secretary, who herself replaced Priti Patel, who was also pretty right-wing, both of whom, by the way, obviously of Indian origin themselves. Now we face the prospect of possibly yet another Home Secretary. So, there's a lot of chopping and changing in the pipeline right now. I suppose the only thing that one can say is that he's inherited this problem and he's here to fix it. He can't be blamed for it.
Obviously not.
He is simply about his job is to try and fix this instability and get the ship of state back on some sort of plain sailing again. And that's what I think what he's going to say and what he's going to do. It's going to be very interesting to see what his first speech as Prime Minister outside Number 10, any moment now, sets out in store.
And I'm pretty sure, it's needless to say, but you can also talk to us about what the people have been saying about this and what the sentiment at large of the people in the United Kingdom is at the moment, because I'm pretty sure they're hoping that this one walks the talks, goes the whole 9 yards and stays the course at least.
It's easy. We're standing here, and I'm standing here in Westminster, and we can talk about politics all day. I have friends, most of whom work very hard for a living and don't spend their whole days obsessing about Westminster shenanigans. What people are generally concerned about is the cost of living and the cost of borrowing, and probably the latter is the big question in most people's minds at the moment. We've been sort of gorging on an era of hyper low interest rates for 20, 25 years now, people taking out massive mortgages, huge multiples of their take-home income, and now they've seen their mortgage rates suddenly jump from 1-2% to 5-6% or more, and it's absolutely crippling households. You can't go out anymore, you can't take your kids to the cinema, you can't go on holiday, and that by extension has affected the economy in a massive way. So what Sunak's first and principal and overwhelming challenge is to try and get those mortgages down and try and get the rate of inflation down. Because when you ask me what people in the street think, that's what people in the street are thinking. They're not worried about the merry-go-round of politics in Westminster. What they're worried about is how much money is disappearing out of their bank accounts suddenly and unexpectedly every month. And that's his job.
Tell me one thing, just for the benefit of our viewers, to give them a little bit of a context in terms of the kind of challenges Rishi Sunak stares in front of him. What has been the cause of this economic uncertainty in the United Kingdom? Did Brexit have a part to play in it? Did the leadership that followed later had a part to play in it? What really was the problem? And now he has to fix that.
Yeah, it's a hugely complex question. I mean, I'm not chairman of the World Bank. Even they probably can answer that question. But it's a combination of factors. I'd say Ukraine, above and foremost, is a massive factor. Putin has been essentially trying to weaponize finance and weaponize energy in order to drive Western Europe into submission. We all know that's his strategy, and it's to a certain extent succeeded. The cost of gas has gone up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-fold last time I looked as a result of his behavior. And one of Liz Truss's final acts was to apply an energy price cap, essentially forcing the government to borrow tens of billions of pounds on the global financial markets to bribe the British population in order that we don't all freeze to death. I mean, there are millions of pensioners out there right now, huddling and cowering under their blankets, worrying how much it's going to cost them to keep the heating on. So that was definitely one of the reasons. Brexit, clearly also a potential reason. And also, the global economy hasn't been in a great state since the pandemic, let's be honest. And the pound was slipping against the dollar and against other currencies even before the Liz Truss fiasco. But of course, that was the coup de grace, wasn't it? Her attempt to impose this ludicrous, zealous financial scheme upon a country already staggering under debt absolutely just broke the nerve of the international financial markets. And I think that's probably why we're in the situation we are now. But certainly three or four major crises intersecting in order to cause that.
Oh, no, absolutely. And what's the scene looking like in Richmond, which is Sunak's Yorkshire constituency as well? Are you hearing anything on that front?
Well, Richmond, Yorkshire, bizarrely, is Rishi Sunak's constituency. I say bizarrely because he's from the south coast of England, and he was raised in an exceptionally wealthy environment. He went to Winchester College, which a school attended by a couple of my old university friends. Outstandingly posh and incredibly expensive. And he's probably one of the most wealthy and privileged people to ever assume the role of prime minister. There's a pretty high bar to clear there, but it's true. So the very fact that he's that he's the member of parliament for Richmond in Yorkshire is somewhat bizarre. But then this often happens in the UK. I mean, Tony Blair, you may remember, another wealthy, privileged scion of Oxford and private school, he was the member of parliament for Sedgefield, which is a hugely deprived northeastern constituency. So I don't know what the people of Richmond, Yorkshire make of Rishi Sunak, but I imagine they're very proud of him right now. But he's probably not going to be spending too much time there over the next few days.
Oh, no, absolutely. He's not. He's going to be back at 10 Downing Street. Of course, that's going to be his new address. And Jonathan, continue to be with us right there on this broadcast. Rishi Sunak has won the race to be the leader of the Conservative Party. He is going to become Britain's next Prime Minister. The former Treasury Chief will be Britain's first leader of colour and faces the task of stabilising the party. And at the time of economic and political turbulence, that's the task that lies ahead for him. Here's a report.
Britain is getting its first Prime Minister of Indian descent. Rishi Sunak has finally won the race to enter 10 Downing Street. He is set to become the country's third Prime Minister in 7 weeks and fifth in 6 years.
I am humbled and honoured to have the support of my parliamentary colleagues and to be elected as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. It is the greatest privilege of my life to be able to serve the party I love and give back to the country I owe so much to.
Penny Mordaunt, Sunak's only competition after former Prime Minister Boris Johnson pulled out of the race, scrambled to persuade Conservative Party MPs for support and eventually dropped out of the race. She could not muster the minimum 100 MPs needed. Sunak, on the other hand, had support from over 180 lawmakers, far more than the 100 MP threshold. Most Tory MPs, including Sunak's critics, rallied behind him, claiming unity is vital for the Conservatives right now.
As returning officer in the leadership election, I can confirm that we have received one valid nomination. And Rishi Sunak is therefore elected as leader of the Conservative Party.
The top job, however, did not come easily to Rishi Sunak. It was only on September 6th when he lost the race to become UK's Prime Minister to Liz Truss, reportedly due to his growing unpopularity within and outside the Conservative Party. Fast forward 6 weeks, he is all ready to take over the reins from Truss, UK's shortest serving Prime Minister ever, who quit on October 20th following a disastrous term. As he vows to tackle the country's battered economy with integrity and accountability, there's still a lot of problems on Sunak's plate, which includes the Ukraine war. The UK and the world are waiting to see what policy response Sunak chooses. Bureau Report, India Today.
As the former Chancellor of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak has achieved many firsts for a man of Indian origin. We're going to get you that story in moments from now. But Jonathan Gilbert still continues to be on this broadcast. Jonathan, I couldn't help but wonder what Rishi Sunak's win, if I could say that, mean for Scotland at this point of time.
Well, that's a heck of a question. Standing as I am in Westminster, I mean, Scotland, is a whole different ball game and is a whole different question indeed. The Scottish people are turning against the English, and they have been doing so for several years now. There's barely a Conservative seat left in Scotland. The Scottish National Party, as it's known, has more or less wiped out English political representation in Scotland. He will probably reach out to Nicola Sturgeon, the SNP leader, in a way that Liz Truss absolutely manifestly failed to do so. I think when we come back to read and write the story of Liz Truss's failed premiership, failed prime ministership, questions will be asked. Why did she fail to reach out to the Scots? Was it because the Tories have simply given them up as a lost cause? Was she just simply incompetent, or was she lacking in social skills? It's one of that's one of the answers. But certainly, Rishi Sunak has a big job on his hands. The Scots have no love of England these days, very little indeed. And the voices calling for a second referendum to separate and secede from the United Kingdom will only grow over the next few years. I think he's got a massive diplomatic job on his hands just to quell those voices for Scottish liberation.
Talk about diplomacy. Everyone in India is also wondering about what the India-UK relationship with Rishi Sunak is going to look like, because he's a man of Indian origin at the end of the day, but he's actually British, and we were discussing this yesterday as well. And I do see some visuals. Couldn't help but notice that there were a lot of visuals that we were playing earlier of Rishi with members of the Indian diaspora as well. So within two parts to this question, so within UK, what's the sentiment of the Indians living there? And secondly, one just wonders what the new UK-India relationship would really look like.
Yeah, certainly. I've had a chat with a couple. I mean, one must remember that the tradition of immigration to the UK from India now goes back many hundreds of years, and there are many Indian people here who've never set foot in India. People of Indian origin, I should say, who've never set foot in India and don't speak a word of Hindi. It's really, we have become that integrated now as a society. So a lot of Indian people I've spoken to are very proud, that this has happened. But at the same time, it's almost an irrelevance to them. They don't regard themselves as any different from you or I or the person standing next to me. So why should they have a different attitude towards their prime minister also, just because he happens to have a slightly, different coloured skin from the rest of us. Now, in terms of UK-Indian relationships, well, they have been very good, obviously, for historical and traditional reasons. I can't see anything changing there. In many respects, I can't see it changing from the Boris Johnson days. He had very, very cordial and very fond relationships with Narendra Modi. I think probably the one little crack in the armor might be the Ukraine issue. Britain obviously has thrown itself full square behind Ukraine in their war against Russia, and India is sitting on the fence. So I don't think racial politics really comes into the issue here. I think the big question is, we will continue, obviously, to be happy and very gentle allies, but the Ukraine war is a little bit of a thorn in the side of our relationship as we speak.
I have to ask you what kind of reactions are coming from the European Union as well, because if you remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, when Brexit happened, Rishi Sunak backed it.
Yeah, Rishi is a Brexiteer, and that certainly isn't going to help matters. But Liz Truss, she flip-flopped. She initially voted against Brexit and then came behind it. Obviously, Boris Johnson was a fervent and ardent Brexiteer, so nothing changes there whatsoever. We're just still trying to work out, this rather fractious schism with Europe. It hasn't had quite the massive political or economic impact that some people had predicted and feared, but at the same time, it's an ongoing issue. I don't think anything changes there, really. He will continue, as before, to try and deal with the Brexit issue.
All right, Jonathan, be with us. As the former Chancellor of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak has achieved many firsts for a man of Indian origin. He has now been chosen as the newest UK Prime Minister, making him not just the youngest, but also the first Indian origin Prime Minister. Let's now take a look at his journey over the years.
It is the greatest privilege of my life to be able to serve the party I love and give back to the country I owe so much to.
Who is Rishi Sunak, Britain's new Prime Minister?
I am resigning.
After Liz Truss's chaotic 6 weeks in charge,
We have made mistakes.
Boris Johnson's aborted comeback mission, and Penny Mordaunt's failure to secure enough Tory backers,
Rishi Sunak is there.
42-year-old Sunak is now at the helm of a country desperately in need of some stability. Let's take a look at how he got here.
That means honesty and responsibility, not fairy tales.
Southampton-born Sunak is the UK's first Prime Minister of Indian descent. His family migrated to Britain in the 1960s, a period when many people from Britain's former colonies moved to the country to help it rebuild after the Second World War. Sunak attended the exclusive private school Winchester College, studied philosophy, politics and economics at Oxford University, and then got an MBA from Stanford University. It was there he met his wife Akshata Murthy, whose father is Indian billionaire Narayan Murthy, founder of IT services giant Infosys. Before entering politics, Sunak worked as an analyst at Goldman Sachs and was later a partner at 2 hedge funds. He's thought to be one of the richest members of Parliament, and his wealth and private school background has come into focus during TV debates. Sunak was elected to Parliament in 2015 and had a swift rise within the Conservative Party. He campaigned for leave in the EU referendum. By 2020, aged only 39, Sunak was named Finance Minister by Boris Johnson.
Delighted to be appointed, lots to get on with. Thanks very much.
Within weeks of becoming Chancellor, Sunak found himself having to steer the UK economy as the COVID-19 pandemic began.
I said I would do whatever it takes.
He pledged to do whatever it takes to help people through the pandemic and developed a popular furlough scheme to support millions of people through multiple lockdowns. He was also behind the Eat Out to Help Out initiative to boost the struggling hospitality sector in summer 2020. That included waiting tables at a central London eatery.
There we go.
In April 2022, Sunak had to deal with the fallout of being fined by police for breaking lockdown rules in Downing Street in June 2020. In that same month, he and his family's finances came under intense scrutiny. It was revealed that his wife, who is an Indian citizen, had not been paying her British tax on her foreign income through her non-domiciled status. The status is available to foreign nationals who do not see Britain as their permanent home.
She's always followed all the rules, paid all the tax in the UK that is due, and paid tax internationally on her international investments. But she recognises this goes beyond just following those rules.
The revelations hurt Sunak ahead of his race against Liz Truss. Sunak eventually resigned as Chancellor in July 2022, a move that contributed to the downfall of Johnson as Tory leader and Prime Minister.
Hasta la vista, baby.
During the race to replace his former boss, Sunak lost out to Truss in the last leadership contest. While some choose to label the multi-millionaire as out of touch, others believe Sunak is the person to bring some calm to the economy.
We need a return to traditional Conservative economic values.
After all, he was proven right in his warnings that Truss's fiscal plan threatened financial stability. Sunak has pledged to bring integrity, professionalism and accountability to government. But he has a mountain to climb to try to restore or renew the reputation of the Conservative Party, following one of the most turbulent periods in British political history.
So Narayan Murthy's son-in-law right there, it's all set to be the new Prime Minister of United Kingdom, and we're getting you live visuals right now from the Buckingham Palace, where Liz Truss will be handing over her formal resignation, and they will be meeting Liz Truss, and also Rishi Sunak will be meeting King Charles III. Those visuals that are coming in right now are of the Buckingham Palace. On the left side of your screens are visuals from earlier. In fact, that's file footage that we're bringing to you. But on the right side of your screen, we're getting you live visuals from London at this point of time. Rishi Sunak has been confirmed as the new Prime Minister of UK. He's going to be succeeding Liz Truss. He officially takes over at 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which is close to about 20 odd minutes from now. Congratulatory messages are pouring in from across the world for the first ever Indian origin Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak has now scripted history by becoming Britain's first Indian origin Prime Minister. As I was just mentioning, Rishi Sunak's grandparents come from Punjab. His father-in-law is Narayan Murthy. He's the founder of Infosys and one of India's best-known businessmen. Murthy, reacting on his son-in-law Rishi Sunak's elevation as Britain's Prime Minister, has said his family was proud of him while wishing him success. Murthy expressed confidence in Rishi Sunak, claiming he would do his best for the people of United Kingdom. Sunak is a Hindu who took oath as an MP from Yorkshire on the Bhagavad Gita in the Parliament. He was the first Indian UK parliamentarian to do so. Rishi Sunak lit Diwali diyas at his residence on Downing Street when he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer under Boris Johnson's leadership.
We are feeling very proud. Indian cannot have better Diwali gift than this. On a Diwali day, Rishi Sunak, an Indian born, maybe an NRI Indian, has become a Prime Minister of the country which has been ruled, a country which has ruled India for almost more than 200 years. So yeah, very proud today.
It means a lot actually, because in a country like UK, अगर हम ये देखें कि अगर कोई Indian अगर वहाँ पर Prime Minister बना है, so this means a lot to us. A lot.
World is changing.
World is changing actually. People are accepting us.
As the former Chancellor of United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak has achieved many firsts for a man of Indian origin. He has now been chosen as the newest Prime Minister of UK, making him not just the youngest, but also the first Indian origin Prime Minister. Here's a look at his journey over the years.
An Oxford University and Stanford graduate, Rishi was born in UK's Southampton area to an Indian family. He is the son of pharmacist mother and a National Health Service general practitioner father. Sunak's grandparents are from Punjab. He's married to Akshata Murthy, who is the daughter of Infosys founder N.R. Narayan Murthy. Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy grabbed a spot on the Sunday Times Rich List in May 2022. Sunak became the first prominent British politician, at the time Chancellor, to have entered UK's wealthiest people's list. Sunak met his future wife while studying for an MBA at Stanford University in California. The couple, who tied the knot in 2009, have two daughters, Anushka and Krishna. Sunak became the Member of Parliament in 2015 after he got elected from Richmond, Yorkshire. In February 2020, he was designated as the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the most important UK cabinet post. Sunak was widely appreciated for his economic package for employees and businesses during the COVID pandemic. He was, however, criticised for not providing enough cost of living support to households. The politician never forgets to pay tributes to his Hindu roots, which makes him popular with the people of the Indian origin. Sunak lost the first round to Liz Truss, who trumped him to become Prime Minister, only to resign 45 days into a tumultuous tenure. This time, Sunak has pledged to fight the profound economic crisis that UK is currently facing.
When it comes to arguing for the union, it's easy to think about, well, make the argument about borrowing. How will Scotland manage? What about their currency? Who's going to pay their pensions? What about trade? Now, those are all important arguments. But we have to remember, nationalism is very seductive. It's a romantic idea. And we have to fight that idea with an argument that speaks to people's hearts. And my grandparents emigrated here, not to England. They emigrated to the United Kingdom. And it wasn't geography for them. It represented a set of values. And we have to make an argument about the union that is based on those shared values, that speaks to people's hearts. And that's what I will do as Prime Minister.
And escalate heat on Putin's Russia for the Ukraine misadventure. He earlier denied any connections with Infosys, part owned by his wife, which continued to operate in Russia during the war in Ukraine, and unite his squabbling Conservative Party.
I was a person who set up furlough in a matter of weeks, right? When everyone said to me, well, how will you do this? How will this work? We don't even know what the word means, let alone how we're going to administer a system that is going to actually make sure that we pay the wages of 10 million people. And every single newspaper, as they told me afterwards, had kept space that day to write the story that the system would never work. And it did. Because that's what I do, John. But when they come across difficult problems, I get to grips with them and I solve them. That's what I will do as Prime Minister.
The challenges are indeed enormous, but as they say, Rishi is ready. Bureau Report, India Today.
Rishi Sunak is the wealthiest man to become the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. But Rishi, once a hedge fund manager before plunging into politics, is a man of many firsts. First Prime Minister of South Asian descent, youngest man to become the British Prime Minister, to also being the wealthiest to hold the post. His rise to the top has been meteoric. But that's just not all. There is another name for the new British Prime Minister, Rishi, an ode to his sleek appearances, stylish outfits and suave mannerisms. In 2020, while he was the Chancellor, Sunak was named the sexiest British MP by top English daily, spurring hashtag Rishi to trend across England. Remember, Sunak and his wife Akshata, the daughter of Infosys CEO Narayan Murthy, are one of the wealthiest, sitting on a combined wealth of over £750 million, thus landing them on the richest of the richest list. Slipping to a break. When we return, 5 people have been arrested in connection to the blast that took place near a temple in Coimbatore on 23rd of June.
You are watching India Today.
News is about putting people first.
Just look at the queues right across.
about asking the right questions to those in power. Is money power being used to bring down elected governments? Who will be held accountable for ministerial corruption? It takes no sides.
माँ का दर्द एक दर्द कोई नहीं समझ सकता उस दर्द को.
It reveals, it heals. Angry people came out on the streets.
Is this the kind of justice system we want in this country?
News is all heart and no hatred.
बिल्किस बानो आज क्या कहना चाहेंगी आप?
हमारे साथ जो हुआ है किसी के साथ भी नहीं होना चाहिए.
Experience the news. With me, Rajdeep Sardesai, only on India Today.
You know, people...
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today.
Big breakthrough coming in Coimbatore car blast case. Cops have arrested 5 people in the cylinder blast in a car near Coimbatore temple. Cops are now investigating the CCTV footage to find out what the group were carrying. A car blast outside a temple in Coimbatore has raised questions of a possible suicide blast attempt. The police have investigated a terror probe into this blast. It has emerged that Jamisha was earlier questioned by the NIA in 2019 on possible links to terror, spurring speculation that it may have been a suicide blast attempt gone wrong. Police officials found nail and marbles at the blast site. Upon raiding Jamisha's house, police also found chemicals that are used to make explosives. BJP's Annamalai tears into DMK government over the Coimbatore blast, says they are downplaying the incident by calling it a cylinder blast.
As political party, we have waited for almost 48 hours. At least to use the word called terror attack has happened in Tamil soil. That is what we want. You are calling that as a cylinder blast and you are trying. So that moment you say a terror attack, at one end it also means people will take extra precaution when going out. It also means. That is also you have to say. If you call this as a cylinder blast, let us imagine one more module is active. That module might do an attack in the next 1 week or 10 days. Then what will the state government do? All we are doing is telling the government, people have started to know this is a terror attack, this is a suicide attack. Please don't hide anymore. Please arrest people, give us confidence.
Out on parole, rapist, murderer and self-styled godman releases a new video. No shame, no fear of the law. The self-styled godman released a video where he shows how he received a hero's welcome. With heartiest welcome written on with lights and diyas, as you can see, the self-styled godman also held online satsangs, released new videos after coming out on parole. Gurmeet Ram Rahim's song Love Charger became infamous during the time when he was convicted for rape and murder. Another mega showdown between Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan and Governor Arif Mohammed. The governor has ordered the vice-chancellors of 9 state universities to immediately resign, claiming their appointments violated UGC guidelines. But Vijayan countered his order, asking the vice-chancellors to stay put. Vijayan claimed the governor is acting on orders of the Sangh Parivar and is waging war against Kerala state universities. The governor, who also acts as a chancellor, demanded the resignations, claiming anomalies in their appointments. He further stated that he was not firing them, but rather giving the vice-chancellors an honourable way out. The vice-chancellors had moved the Kerala High Court, who held a special hearing for this petition. The High Court contended that the vice-chancellors can stay in their positions as per the law and until the governor issues his final order.
This letter which was sent to the vice-chancellors, this was not a letter to remove them. This was a letter to tell them this is the judgment of the Supreme Court and now I am duty-bound to start proceedings for the fresh appointment of the vice-chancellors. Therefore, the honourable way will be that you send your resignation. They have refused and papers have reported. Now it has become clear that whose instructions vice-chancellors follow. Papers have said today that LDF has given them instructions not to resign.
അവർ സാധാരണഗതിയിൽ രാജിവെക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ലല്ലോ. സാധാരണ നിലക്ക് ഇതിനൊക്കെ ഒരു വ്യവസ്ഥയുണ്ടല്ലോ. നമ്മുടെ സംസ്ഥാനത്ത് രാജ്യത്തെ ജനാധിപത്യ വ്യവസ്ഥയനുസരിച്ച് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയ നിയമമുണ്ട്. ആ നിയമത്തിൽ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ എന്നത് വലിയ പദവിയല്ലേ? നമ്മൾ ചാൻസലറുടെ അതേ പദവി അല്ലെങ്കിലും ചാൻസലർക്ക് കീഴെ പിന്നെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറല്ലേ ഉള്ളൂ. ആ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറിലെ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ നിർവഹിക്കുക. അത്തരമൊരു വൈസ് ചാൻസലറെ ഒഴിവാക്കേണ്ടി വരുന്നത് എങ്ങനെ എന്ന് കൃത്യമായി നിയമത്തിൽ വ്യവസ്ഥ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടുള്ള നടപടിക്രമങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതനുസരിച്ച് മാത്രമല്ലേ കാര്യങ്ങൾ നീക്കാൻ പറ്റൂ. നിങ്ങൾ പെട്ടെന്ന് ഒരു ദിവസം എനിക്കൊരു തോന്നലുണ്ടായി ഇറങ്ങിപ്പോ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഇറങ്ങിപ്പോകാൻ പറ്റൂ? അത് സ്വാഭാവികമായിട്ടും ആത്മാഭിമാനമുള്ള ആരും ചെയ്യില്ലല്ലോ.
Governor, as the Chancellor of the universities, has demanded the resignation of 9 Vice Chancellors in Kerala. This is highly deplorable because this will make the universities headless and this will create obstacles in their path. Before 1 month, RSS Supremo Mohan Bhagavat visited Kerala and during that time our respected governor visited him personally. The agenda is being planned from RSS centers.
Communal crashes broke out at Vadodara over Diwali celebrations. Cops suspect planned riots in Vadodara Diwali clashes that erupted over an argument between 2 communities over bursting crackers. Cops claim streetlights were turned off. Using of petrol bombs clearly indicates that how the riots could have been completely planned. After the riots broke out, within no time, groups started to vandalize shops. Several cars were broken by the rioters, many vehicles torched too. Petrol bombs were even thrown at cops during the clashes. Breaking news coming in after unrest and communal clashes in Vadodara on Diwali night. India Today has accessed exclusive images that show what led to the mayhem. Over 10 people, including 45 children, were bursting crackers at the spot. One rocket was hurled at the group from the other side of the road. The group protested that how the rocket was hurled at the children. Immediately after this incident, stone pelting started from the other side. Children were taken inside and then the fight between both the sides started. Second CCTV footage also shows how CCTV cameras were being destroyed by the rioters. CCTV footage shows a person coming with face covering, with handkerchief and destroying the CCTV camera. The proof is right there on your screens. It is a big India Today exclusive that shows you fact from fiction. No matter what you hear elsewhere, this is exactly what happened because India Today has got you exclusive images of what happened in Vadodara. Let me walk you once again through these visuals that you're seeing on your screens to give you clarity. You don't know there was unrest and communal clashes on Diwali night. Now the exclusive images on your screens show you what really led to all of that. About over 10 people, including 4 to 5 children, were simply bursting crackers at one spot. So you see that one rocket was hurled from the group from the other side of the road. The group protested how the rocket was hurled at the children, and obviously so. Immediately after this incident, stone pelting started from the other side where the rocket came from. Children were taken inside, and then the fight between both the sides started. The second CCTV footage that we also have, we are running that on your screens right now, shows how CCTV cameras were being destroyed by the rioters. CCTV footage showing you a person coming with a face covering with a handkerchief and destroying the CCTV camera. Both the visuals at the moment on your screen, and that is the breaking news. We're getting exclusive images coming in of Vadodara communal clashes.
पूरा ही तोड़ दिया और क्या अंदर कुछ सामान था वो भी
सब ले गए मेरा सामान भरेला था अंदर 10,000 का सब मेरा नुकसान करा है अंदर
तो पैसे
के गल्ले भी ले गए सब मैं उधर आगे मेरी लारी फेंक दिए ले
यहाँ पे यार रखते हो यहाँ से भी
पे ही थी मेरी गाड़ी यहाँ ही थी लारी यहाँ से ले गए
कितने बजे ये घटना हुई रही और क्या आप बोल रहे हो आप कुछ बोल रहे हो कि अंधेरा हो गया था
12 बजे बाद हुई थी
वो पता नहीं है किस मामले में लेके गई है वहाँ कुछ बताते ही नहीं है कि किस मामले के लिए क्या कलम लगाई है क्या धारा लगाई है कुछ पता नहीं है अपनों को हाँ कुछ बताते ही नहीं है अब ये तो व्यापारी इंसान है ये थोड़ी यहाँ पत्थर मारा करेंगे कि कुछ करेंगे धंधा पानी देखेंगे कि यहाँ पत्थरे मारे करेंगे ये और घटना होने के 10-15 मिनट पहले तो हम घर भी निकल गए यहाँ मौजूद ही नहीं है जो इंसान यहाँ मौजूद नहीं है वो इंसान यहाँ क्या करेगा आके
Major riots occurred in Vadodara after heated arguments over bursting firecrackers. We are present at the spot where this whole incident started. Let me tell you, at this Panigat area of Vadodara, there were some people, some small children over here who were bursting crackers. After which, there was a rocket which was thrown on them from the other side. And after which, the heated argument started. And let me tell you, it was so instant that after which stone pelting started, petrol bombs were hurled on each other. And let me tell you, most importantly, as soon as this particular incident started, the entire street lights on this particular roads were completely switched off, and that is what the police officials are saying, that this whole incident was pre-planned. There's a sabotage behind this, because let me show you the entire visuals of this particular area. There is the police station just 100 meters from this particular place where this incident took place. There is the Panigat police station, and behind me is the Zone 3 DCP office. So you can understand the proximity that how this whole incident has taken place. And let me tell you, when this whole incident started, there were so many of stones available, there were petrol bombs, the street lights were off, and so many of the shops and all the other vehicles are completely vandalized. Over here you can see that how this particular vehicle is also vandalized. And let me tell you, when the Zone 3 DCP was passing from this particular area, when this patrolling, he was doing this patrolling, a petrol bomb was thrown from that particular building. Now, the police officials have started the investigation. They have made a special team to investigate this whole particular case. They have detained over 20 people in this matter. But clearly, a politics has started. BJP's Amit Malviya and other leaders are saying that this was a proper pre-planned incident, a pre-planned riots to actually target the Hindus. With camera person Sajid Alam, this is Saurabh Vakhtania in Vadodara for India Today.
Slipping into a very short commercial break. When we return, Rishi Sunak has been confirmed as the new Prime Minister of United Kingdom. Congratulations pouring in from across the world for the first ever Indian origin Prime Minister. This is more in moments from now. Stay with us on India Today.
You are watching India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today.
Very good evening and thanks so much for being with us here on India Today. I'm Chaiti Narula bringing you all the top stories. Let's begin with the headlines first. The lifeline, not just Indians, but of nearly every person in the world. WhatsApp services have finally been restored after being down for nearly 2 hours, though several users continue to complain about several glitches. Rishi Sunak has been confirmed as the new Prime Minister of United Kingdom, succeeding Liz Truss. He will officially take over at 4 p.m. IST. Congratulations are pouring in from across the world for the first ever Indian origin Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak becoming the new UK Prime Minister has sparked a political war in India after opposition asked if something similar can ever happen in India. BJP hits back, citing examples of Manmohan Singh and Abdul Kalam. Communal clashes in Vadodara on the occasion of Diwali. Two groups clashed with instances of stone pelting reported. The cops who tried to calm the situation were attacked with petrol bombs by unruly crowd. 5 people have been arrested in connection to the blast that took place near a temple in Coimbatore on 23rd of October. The cops are probing a terror angle in the case. The BJP accuses Chief Minister Stalin of downplaying the suicide terror angle. Out on parole, rape and murder convict Ram Rahim's fresh provocation. The self-styled godman held online satsangs and released new videos after coming out on parole. News just breaking. The UK PM designate Rishi Sunak arrives at Buckingham Palace in London to meet King Charles III. That's the latest coming in at the moment. We told you at about 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time all of this was going to happen, and that is exactly what's happening right now. He's arrived now. Rishi Sunak, the PM designate, has arrived at the Buckingham Palace in London. Those visuals coming in from London on your screens right now. He is now going to be meeting King Charles III, and after which formally he is going to be the Prime Minister of United Kingdom. We're just getting you all the latest details. We'll have Jonathan Gilbert also get us the latest details in terms of what is really going on right there at the Buckingham Palace. So in a couple of moments from now, the countdown has truly begun. It is going to be official. It is protocol in United Kingdom to do this. So now he's entered the Buckingham Palace. Those were the visuals of him entering the Buckingham Palace. He's arrived. He will be meeting King Charles III, and now all set to be the Prime Minister of United Kingdom in just moments from now. So the UK PM designate arrives at Buckingham Palace. That is the breaking news we're bringing to you at this point. Rishi Sunak. Jonathan is now joining us live for the latest. Jonathan, the countdown has begun. In moments from now, the UK will have Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister officially, Jonathan.
Yes, that's right. It may seem very strange, but this weird choreography, this strange dance of protocol has to be undergone nonetheless. I mean, to all intents and purposes, Rishi Sunak is Prime Minister, but he's not officially Prime Minister until the King has invited him to form a government. I know it sounds ludicrous, and, you know, if you've been watching The Hobbit or, you know, Game of Thrones, this probably sounds familiar, but the King has to invite him to form a government. He will do so, and he will gracefully accept the invitation to form a government. He can form a government because he's been bequeathed a parliamentary majority
of some 80-odd MPs by his predecessor, but one, Boris Johnson, of course. So at the point then he accepts the invitation to form a government. He drives back to Downing Street. He gets out the old podium. He delivers his acceptance speech. And then finally, he gets on with the business of governing the country. And I think his first, after introducing himself to the various flunkies and functionaries who make 10 Downing Street function, he's going to have to sit down and figure out who's going to be his new cabinet, this ever-rotating table of high office. Who's going to be his new chancellor? Is he going to stick with Jeremy Hunt? Who's going to be his new home secretary? Who's going to be his foreign secretary? Will he stick with them? Who knows? That's the next drama that it's about to unfold.
Oh yes, that's going to be the next drama that's going to be unfolding. So they must be on their edge there. It's going to be a nail-biting one for most of them who are sitting right there not knowing what fate holds for them, because for the moment the visuals that are coming in, as Jonathan is just mentioning, this is protocol. The King Charles III has invited him to form the government. He will accept it. Then he'll formally be the Prime Minister of United Kingdom. In the meanwhile, while all of this is going on, Jonathan, what about the shortest serving Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Liz Truss? Where is she at the moment?
Well, as is traditional, she simply slunk out of the back of Buckingham Palace. They arrive with pomp and circumstance, and they leave under a cloud, sadly, when they are essentially deposed. What's going to happen to them? Well, according to her resignation speech, she's going to be spending a lot more time with her constituents in Norfolk. Don't forget, even a Prime Minister is also a Member of Parliament, and even a Prime Minister is, believe it or not, a representative of a parliamentary constituency. So she may well go back there. If she follows Boris Johnson's lead, she'll probably go on holiday. I mean, Johnson quite notoriously went on 2 or 3 exotic holidays the moment he left office. Some might say, well, that was his reward for guiding us through the pandemic. Some might say, well, that's just typical Boris, isn't it? Just amusing and enjoying yourself at other people's expense. But I think probably we weren't going to be hearing too much from Liz Truss over the next couple of weeks. The spotlight has moved on now. She may spend more time with her family. She may spend more time with her constituencies, but she's not going to be spending too much time in front of cameras, I suspect.
Digressing a bit, I just thought about it. This is a first for both of them. In fact, the monarch and for Rishi Sunak, the ceremonial kissing of hands, because both of them are new into their roles at the moment.
Yeah, there are so many novelties here today, one almost loses count. Obviously, yes, as you say, it's King Charles, and I'm still struggling to adjust to saying that. King Charles's first appointment of a prime minister. Rishi Sunak is himself, as we never tire of saying, the first Asian origin British prime minister. He's also the youngest British prime minister in some 200 years, not since the days of Pitt the Younger. Anyone who's ever studied British parliamentary history will remember, the ludicrously young Pitt the Younger. Well, Rishi Sunak is the next youngest Prime Minister in British history. So all these extraordinary targets are being met today, and all these incredible barriers are being surpassed and overcome.
And we have the India Today exclusive visuals on our screens right now of King Charles III and Rishi Sunak right there in one frame. A first for both the men, actually. It's called ceremoniously kissing of hands in United Kingdom. It's usually a bow and a bow, I beg your pardon, and a handshake. And it's a meeting where the monarch formally asks the new prime minister to form a government. This happens to be, in fact, King Charles III's first such inaugural meeting, and both the men are now still new into their roles. Breaking news coming in: Rishi Sunak becomes the Prime Minister of United Kingdom. It is official. It is official, viewers. Rishi Sunak is now the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Raj in the UK. Exclusive visuals on your screens of King Charles III and Rishi Sunak right there from the Buckingham Palace in London. Rishi Sunak formally now becomes the Prime Minister of United Kingdom after meeting the King. The visual on your screen that you see, and let's go full frame on that visual to show you what really happened there with a handshake. It is a symbolic handover of power in the United Kingdom. We've seen that before with the Queen and many Prime Ministers of United Kingdom, but for the first time after years, I would say, it is King Charles III welcoming his first Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. And it's, hard to believe it was just a month back almost that the Queen did the same with Liz Truss. And now, just a month later, you have King Charles III, already welcoming the first Prime Minister under his monarchy. So Sunak has been invited to form the government by King Charles III. And this is marking the symbolic handover of power. It's a mix of ceremony. It is a mix of political pragmatism. It's a ritual, so as to speak, of continuity. But I must say, against the backdrop of some huge political turmoil in United Kingdom. And of course, this is the key constitutional role, I would say, of the king. And his mother was the one who took it very seriously as well. So much so that despite her ill health, if you remember, she carried out her final meeting with Liz Truss when she became the Prime Minister last month. And just look at the turn of events. Then after the sad demise of the Queen, you had King Charles III take over as the monarch of United Kingdom. And just a month later, the Prime Minister changes too. Liz Truss is no longer the Prime Minister. Now it is Rishi Sunak who is shaking his hands with King Charles III, who officially invited him to form the government. And he is now Rishi Sunak has now become the new UK Prime Minister after meeting King Charles at the Buckingham Palace. Visuals on your screens at the moment. Jonathan is still with us. Jonathan, it is, I don't have the word for it, probably you would have it. I would say it's very surprising, strange, and quite a first in that sense, because last month we saw a similar visual of the Queen with Liz Truss, and just a month later, now you see the new monarch of United Kingdom, King Charles III, welcoming the first Prime Minister under his monarchy.
Yeah, it is a mind storm, isn't it, to put it mildly. I think what you got to understand is that politics in the UK is, generally speaking, a very sedate affair. We've had this Conservative government in power now for some 14 years. And the previous monarch, Queen Elizabeth, was obviously on the throne for 70 years. So that's the whole point, isn't it, of Conservative politics. It's you maintain tradition and you don't rock the boat. So suddenly we've had this flurry of prime ministers coming and going, and in addition to that, obviously this rather tumultuous business of the monarchy, the monarchical succession as well. So as you say, as a visual, seeing a new king greeting a new prime minister is a real act of cognitive dissonance, because we've never seen this kind of thing before. And I think we're all going to have to adjust to the new reality of that. One can only hope, obviously, that King Charles remains on his throne for many more prosperous years to come. And perhaps, although, whatever your politics, at least wish for a little bit more political stability as well, at least to see us through the next couple of years.
Yes, a mindstorm. That's the word that I was looking at. Jonathan, thanks for helping me out with that. And yes, of course, you're absolutely right. Who would have really imagined? But, this is a moment of firsts. Now the countdown begins, Jonathan. Very soon, we'll have Rishi Sunak address United Kingdom as the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister of United Kingdom. How long for that?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely extraordinary business. What's going to happen now is that having gone through this formal ceremony, this so-called hand-kissing ceremony, Rishi Sunak will join his motorcade and will return to Downing Street. They'll bring out the old podium, and then he will deliver his first address. Now, you may recall, I think you've been broadcasting it, his acceptance speech last night was rather stilted and rather wooden, a little bit glassy-eyed by any person's standards. I think, this is testimony to the fact that he was probably as shocked as anyone to find himself in that position. But also, he's not the world's most polished media performer, at least not currently. So it's going to be very interesting to see what his acceptance speech, his opening remarks as Prime Minister will be. He follows Liz Truss, who was herself rather uncomfortable as a public speaker. And then, of course, Boris Johnson, who was this extraordinarily gregarious, ebullient character. So I'm going to be very interested indeed, very open-minded to hear what Sunak's first remarks will be. And I hope they'll be relatively brief and to the point, because, as you say, his principal job now is to get on with the business of governing this country and trying to bring inflation down and trying to tame some of the unruly politics of the last few weeks and months.
That unruly politics, what's your sense, Jonathan, since you track politics, is it going to continue? Because yesterday when he made an address to the Tory MPs, he called out, ruled out, I beg your pardon, calling an early general election despite the calls that were coming in from the opposition parties.
Yeah, there's absolutely no chance whatsoever of there being a general election because he sits upon this 80-strong parliamentary majority delivered to him by Boris Johnson as a combination of Johnson's campaigning charisma and also the country's determination to see Brexit through, get Brexit done, as was this notorious phrase. So, no, he's not going to call a general election. It's a terrible cliche. I said it myself yesterday, and I've heard it on the BBC today, but turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Why would you call a general election when you're almost certain to be wiped out? In any case, many of these Tory MPs, especially what are called the Blue Wall MPs, or should I say the new Red Wall MPs from the north, who inhabit traditional Labour and left-wing seats and are there purely and utterly on the basis of the Brexit vote, hanging on to their jobs by a thread, will almost certainly be gone come the next election in 2 years' time. So there's no way on earth that any Conservative MP would call for an election, and the Labour Party can call for the election as long as it wants. It doesn't have the ability
and you're absolutely
to
right.
call an election.
The Conservative MPs are not going to calling for an election. It's going to be absolutely suicidal for them to call for an election, and you're absolutely spot on as far as that is concerned. But as far as the opposition parties are concerned, aren't they pressing for an early election?
Yeah, but they simply don't have the constitutional right to do so, Nabila. That's the point. When a government is installed in power, then it is so for a maximum of 5 years. Now, I cast my mind back to John Major's prime ministership. He followed Margaret Thatcher in the early 90s, and he hung on to a super slim majority. I forget precisely the number of MPs, but, it wavered in the teens. He was like 16, 18 or so majority, and yet he hung on for 5 years because he could and he was allowed to. And no matter how much you call for a general election, on moral grounds, constitutionally, there's simply no reason to do so. Rishi Sunak has an 80-odd majority. It's one of the biggest parliamentary majorities in recent memory. There's no way on earth, none, despite the fact of his absolute tanking in the opinion polls, that they would call an election right now. He's going to simply say, and he will repeat this again and again, I'm going to get on with the job, he will say, of running the country. I'm going to get on with the job of running the country.
Very rightly said, Jonathan. And as much as I take that as a compliment, you're speaking to Chetty. I'm just going to correct you right there. So now has Rishi Sunak left the Buckingham Palace? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to tell me because I'm standing here in Westminster. So Downing Street is just up the road there. And Buckingham Palace is about a mile away over there. So to the best of my knowledge, then he will be getting into a car. He'll be traveling on a motorcade. The streets will have been swept clear, obviously, for the benefit of this convoy. And he will drive into Downing Street. And then obviously, probably have a chance to, refresh himself. And then we'll come out and stand at the podium and deliver his opening remarks as Prime Minister. Now, what he has to say will be very, very interesting indeed. I think we've heard it all before. We heard Liz Truss's acceptance speech just 7 weeks ago. So it might be something along similar lines. I think there will be calls for unity. There will be calls to unify the Conservative Party. There will also be a plea to unify the country itself. And he's going to
show Rishi Sunak about to address. Let's listen in.
I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government in his name. It is only right to explain why I'm standing here as your new Prime Minister. Right now, our country is facing a profound economic crisis. The aftermath of COVID still lingers. Putin's war in Ukraine has destabilized energy markets and supply chains the world over. I want to pay tribute to my predecessor, Liz Truss. She was not wrong to want to improve growth in this country. It is a noble aim. And I admired her restlessness to create change. But some mistakes were made. Not born of ill will or bad intentions. Quite the opposite, in fact. But mistakes nonetheless. And I have been elected as leader of my party and your Prime Minister, in part, to fix them. And that work begins immediately. I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. This will mean difficult decisions to come. But you saw me during COVID doing everything I could to protect people and businesses with schemes like furlough. There are always limits, more so now than ever. But I promise you this, I will bring that same compassion to the challenges we face today. The government I lead will not leave the next generation, your children and grandchildren, with a debt to settle that we were too weak to pay ourselves. I will unite our country, not with words, but with action. I will work day in and day out to deliver for you. This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level. Trust is earned, and I will earn yours. I will always be grateful to Boris Johnson for his incredible achievements as Prime Minister, and I treasure his warmth and generosity of spirit. And I know he would agree that the mandate my party earned in 2019 is not the sole property of any one individual. It is a mandate that belongs to and unites all of us. And the heart of that mandate is our manifesto. I will deliver on its promise: a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders, protecting our environment, supporting our armed forces, levelling up and building an economy that embraces the opportunities of Brexit, where businesses invest, innovate and create jobs. I understand how difficult this moment is. After the billions of pounds it cost us to combat COVID, after all the dislocation that caused, in the midst of a terrible war that must be seen successfully to its conclusions, I fully appreciate how hard things are. And I understand too that I have work to do to restore trust after all that has happened. All I can say is that I am not daunted. I know the high office I have accepted, and I hope to live up to its demands. But when the opportunity to serve comes along, you cannot question the moment, only your willingness. So I stand here before you, ready to lead our country into the future, to put your needs above politics, to reach out and build a government that represents the very best traditions of my party. Together, we can achieve incredible things. We will create a future worthy of the sacrifices so many have made, and fill tomorrow and every day thereafter with hope. Thank you.
All right, so there you go. Rishi Sunak addressing as the Prime Minister, his first address as the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, right there from 10 Downing Street, his new address. He's spoken about how they can achieve incredible things together, about how he wants to unite the country, not with words, but with action, talking about how he's going to work day in and day out to deliver that for the people. He goes on to say that he's been chosen as the leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister to fix some of the mistakes that have been made by his predecessor. And he says the work begins immediately. Latest coming in, the work starts now, says Sunak. Some mistakes were made. That's what he said about Truss's leadership, and also spoke about the aftermath of COVID crisis that still lingers and how UK is facing profound economic crisis. He's just addressed the nation. Jonathan Gilbert is with us. Jonathan, spot on. You know, almost could have written that speech for him. Spot on. But a shroud of secrecy still continues to surround Sunak's reshuffle, isn't it?
Yeah, the reshuffle will come, and that's a question for another time. But in terms of the speech itself, yeah, as you say, it's fairly boilerplate acceptance speech. You know, he will govern with integrity, etc. I think that the thing that stuck out for me was his acceptance that mistakes were made. Now, this is quite an unusual stance, isn't it? Even if you're taking over from a political rival on your own party, it's rare to point out that your predecessor has made catastrophic mistakes. You often just you know, gloss over that and move on. So I think that was a little bit of a barb, shall we say, and perhaps a little bit of revenge, because of course he lost the previous leadership election 7 weeks ago, precisely because he says he refused to engage in quote unquote fairy tale economics. Well, Liz Truss did engage in fairy tale economics, and she had a very big bad wolf ending to her career. So I think this was probably his subtle way of pointing out that he had indeed been right. But the rest of it, you know, let's move on. Safer streets, better schools, our NHS, end the war in Ukraine, all fairly standard stuff. You know, words are cheap, but economics are expensive. So let's wait and see now when he does his cabinet reshuffle what they're intending to do about it.
You're absolutely right, but I'm just wondering, if not that, then what else could he have said of Liz Truss's leadership? I'm just wondering if anybody would be in that space. He said he admired her restlessness to create change, but there were some mistakes that were indeed made. In fact, let's listen in to what Rishi Sunak just said.
Putin's war in Ukraine has destabilized energy markets and supply chains the world over. I want to pay tribute to my predecessor, Liz Truss. She was not wrong to want to improve growth in this country. It is a noble aim. And I admired her restlessness to create change. But some mistakes were made. Not born of ill will or bad intentions. Quite the opposite, in fact. But mistakes nonetheless. And I have been elected as leader of my party and your Prime Minister, in part, to fix them. And that work begins immediately. I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. This will mean difficult decisions to come. But you saw me during COVID doing everything I could to protect people and businesses with schemes like furlough. There are always limits, more so now than ever. But I promise you this: I will bring that same compassion to the challenges we face today. The government I lead will not leave the next generation, your children and grandchildren, with a debt to settle that we were too weak to pay ourselves. I will unite our country, not with words, but with action. I will work day in and day out to deliver for you. This government will have integrity, professionalism, and accountability at every level. Trust is earned, and I will earn yours. I will always be grateful to Boris Johnson for his incredible achievements as Prime Minister, and I treasure his warmth and generosity of spirit. And I know he would agree that the mandate my party earned in 2019 is not the sole property of any one individual. It is a mandate that belongs to and unites all of us. And the heart of that mandate is our manifesto. I will deliver on its promise: a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders, protecting our environment, supporting our armed forces, levelling up, and building an economy that embraces the opportunities of Brexit, where businesses invest, innovate, and create jobs. I understand how difficult this moment is. After the billions of pounds it cost us to combat COVID, after all the dislocation that caused, in the midst of a terrible war that must be seen successfully to its conclusions, I fully appreciate how hard things are. And I understand too that I have work to do to restore trust after all that has happened. All I can say is that I am not daunted. I know the high office I have accepted, and I hope to live up to its demands. But when the opportunity to serve comes along, you cannot question the moment, only your willingness. So I stand here before you, ready to lead our country into the future, to put your needs above politics, to reach out and build a government that represents the very best traditions of my party. Together, we can achieve incredible things. We will create a future worthy of the sacrifices so many have made, and fill tomorrow and every day thereafter with hope. Thank you.
Jonathan is still with us right there. Jonathan, he's said a lot of things, if we heard that, but it is the trust factor at this point of time that people would want to establish right now with the ruling party, the Conservatives, of course, with the kind of flip-flops at the moment. Only walking the talk is going to be earning their trust, isn't it?
No, absolutely. Listening to that back again, I was actually put in mind of Tony Blair. You may remember him back in the day, 25 years ago, a young 40-something, newly appointed, newly formed prime minister. He also had that slightly messianic trait about the way he spoke, always talking about hope and placing trust in the future. Obviously, Sunak, Blair was a profound Christian, as it happens, and Sunak, we understand, is a practicing Hindu. But nonetheless, there is that slightly sort of pulpit-esque delivery to his speech. So yes, it's all about trust. It's all about the future. It's all about hope. But what he really has to do now is knuckle down and deal with the catastrophe that is the current UK economy. And I hope that's what he's going to do for everyone's sake.
Or a party that has been planned, or are they going to just get straight down to business, Jonathan?
No, there won't. There absolutely won't be a party. No, I mean, number one, we understand he's teetotal, so he doesn't even drink. Number two, it would send out absolutely the wrong message, wouldn't it? After the scandal of Boris Johnson's lockdown parties, alleged lockdown parties, which he's still on the hook for, and he's still under investigation for lying to Parliament about. So no, absolutely no question of any celebration whatsoever. I think Sunak is a very, very businesslike and very serious human being. He's going to get down, he's going to appoint his new cabinet, and then he's going to get down to business. And he's going to be, frankly, wielding the whip, wielding the cosh, I suspect, because there's a lot of very serious work that needs to be done now.
He kept speaking about the manifesto. I think he made a mention about the manifesto as well. So what's the manifesto? And, that'll lay out a path for what he needs to do exactly.
Yeah, I mean, manifestos are complex because you write a manifesto at leisure, and then repent at will, I suppose. The Tories made many promises in their manifesto, some of which escape me in the heat of the moment, but they promised, for instance, to try and bring down immigration. Of course, every Conservative government has promised that since time immemorial, manage the economy, get inflation down. I think, all these things are probably uppermost on his mind. The immigration issue is particularly interesting because Liz Truss obviously made a lot of promises. They introduced this very controversial Rwanda scheme where asylum seekers would essentially be flown away to Africa, banished there. It remains to be seen whether that will continue. The outgoing Home Secretary, but one, Suella Braverman, fell out with Liz Truss over that. She wanted to crack down on immigration. Liz Truss was one of those free market conservatives who encourages immigration because that tends to boost economic growth. So it'll be very interesting to see what Rishi Sunak's position is on the immigration question as laid down in the manifesto.
Will tell. Time will answer that question. But immediately next, there would be a cabinet reshuffle. Has he promised anyone a job yet?
No, not to our knowledge. I mean, that he is keeping his cards incredibly close to his chest there, and it would be impossible to speculate. I think that the only relative certainty is that, and this is kind of ironic because he is a former Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, we have this job called Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's what everyone else calls Finance Minister, but he is the former Finance Minister himself and could do that job himself blindfolded. But now he's Prime Minister, he has to have another Finance Minister. Now, they installed Jeremy Hunt in haste just a few days ago in order to try and survive this car crash of mini budgets that Liz Truss brought in. He's not a natural economist, but he is a very seasoned politician. And I think it's probably highly likely that Jeremy Hunt will remain as Chancellor of the Exchequer simply for the sake of stability. Obviously, the markets are what's trashed the pound and trashed the economy, so the markets have to be respected. So I think it's probably highly likely that Jeremy Hunt will remain as Chancellor. Now, Home Secretary, who knows? Grant Shapps, he's another seasoned Tory. He's only been in the post for about a week. Who knows if he'll stay? James Cleverly, who's the Foreign Secretary, again, was a Truss friend and loyalist. Who knows what's going to happen there? It might be sensible to keep him there. I suppose now, upon reflection, Ben Wallace, the Defense Secretary, will almost certainly stay because he has handled the Ukraine war very effectively indeed, and clearly that's on a knife edge itself at the moment. So it would be deeply impolitic and unsound to meddle with that. Everything else, frankly, as far as I can see, is up for grabs.
So plenty of speculation right there from what I understand from you, Jonathan. Continue to be on this broadcast with us. A lot of speculation about the cabinet reshuffle. From what Jonathan says, he doesn't seem like he's promised anyone a job as yet, but there is a lot of speculation, and the next business for Rishi Sunak is going to be his cabinet. Who will form the cabinet of the new Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak? We're slipping into a break. When we return, the world is witnessing the last solar eclipse of the year. We're bringing you that story.
You are watching India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
हम अकेले ड्यूटी करते, हम गरीब आदमी हैं सर।
मेरी क्या गलती है बताइए?
गांव से इसीलिए आए कि अपना परिवार का भरण पोषण होता रहे।
आत्मसम्मान तो मेरा चला ही गया, मुझे सिर्फ रिस्पेक्ट चाहिए।
जितने भी पूरे भारत में सिक्योरिटी गार्ड लगे हुए हैं, सबको मान सम्मान मिलना चाहिए।
हम आपकी कहानी पूरी दुनिया को सुनाएंगे और आपके स्वाभिमान के लिए आवाज उठाएंगे। रात 9 बजे आज तक पर।
The COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to do a rethink on how we lead our lives, to think about what we are doing to our bodies and to our health, and also wellness, because it is time now to go back to the basics. It is time to talk about your food, your sleep habits, your gut health, stress, and much more. And that exactly is what our brand new health show, Health 360, is going to do at these times only on India Today TV.
Ever heard of zombie fires? No, I'm not talking about flesh-eating maniacs. This is a rare phenomenon that is also known as overwintering fires. This occurs mostly in countries like Russia, Canada, and Alaska. So what are zombie fires really? Peat fires burn underground and are very difficult to detect. They're also known as zombie fires as they can burn underground and reignite weeks or months later. Climate change is drying peatlands and making them more susceptible to fire. During a fire, burnt trees fall to the ground, igniting the flammable peat in the soil. The embers can continue to burn more than a meter underground for weeks or months, even in winter in certain regions of the world. The embers are fed by peat, a spongy material rich in carbon formed by decomposition of organic matter. They burn underground and return to the surface where in dry and windy conditions they can start a new fire.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today.
You are watching India Today.
The world is witnessing the last solar eclipse of the year. The celestial phenomenon occurs when moon passes between the earth and the sun. It blocks most of the sun's light and throws its shadow on the earth, creating a dazzling, fiery crescent. While parts of Europe have witnessed the solar eclipse, in India, it has just begun. It is expected to continue till 6 p.m. this evening. In India, the solar eclipse is associated with religious beliefs and some superstitions too. The doors of Kedarnath and Badrinath temples have been closed due to the partial solar eclipse earlier today. People were seen taking holy dips ahead of the eclipse. Now, viewing the eclipse sun with the naked eye is not advised even for a very brief period of time. It can damage the eyes permanently and result in blindness. The Indian Institute of Astrophysics is live streaming the partial solar eclipse from Hanle in Ladakh. They say that it is one of the rarest solar eclipses and will not be seen again for another 10 years. For one. Live visuals coming in at the moment from Lucknow. You can see Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath right there, flanked by a number of people. In fact, it's the world that is witnessing the last solar eclipse of the year. The moon passing between Earth and the sun, blocking most of the sunlight, throwing its shadow on Earth, a dazzling fiery crescent. In India, it has just begun and is expected to continue till 6 p.m. And in India, a lot of beliefs, that is religious beliefs and superstitions, are attached with it as well. There are doors of some temples like the Kedarnath and Badrinath have been closed because of the partial solar eclipse. People have also taken holy dip ahead of the eclipse. Here you can see Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath right there as well. But I must tell the viewers what I just said earlier too. Viewing the eclipse sun with the naked eye is not advised even for a very brief period of time. It can damage the eyes permanently. It can also result in blindness. The Indian Institute of Astrophysics is live streaming the partial solar eclipse from Ladakh. They are saying it is one of the rarest solar eclipse and will not be seen again for the next 10 years. Ashutosh is now joining us for the latest details. Ashutosh, before you begin, there are some do's and don'ts as far as the solar eclipse are concerned, and these are mainly health related in terms of not looking at it straight in the eye, etc. If you could walk our viewers through that first.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're watching, going on your rooftop or in an open place and trying to look the solar eclipse, do not see through naked eyes. In fact, there are some such kind of glasses available in the market which barely cost 30 to 50 rupees. Use only that, not even mirror reflection, not even reflection in the water as it is suggested by many. It could really harm your eyes. But for now, what we are seeing here at the Delhi's Nehru Planetarium, massive arrangements have been done by the programmers of Nehru Planetarium. At various points, these scopes have been placed. And the Prerna, the programmer, one of the programmers from the planetarium, will join me shortly here. But for now, what we know that it is now 15% Prerna. It is visible 15%.
Yes, 15%, and I think it's about to 5. Around 5:30 will be 43%.
And what will be the maximum percentage of the solar eclipse that will be?
43 is the complete total percentage from Delhi only.
43%. And now there are certain myths, as far as the advisories for people, those who are really, going on their rooftop or in open places watching. What are the advisories, what precautions people should take as far as, watching or viewing this solar eclipse?
Only one advisory is there. Never ever see sun from the naked eyes. Use certain kind of filters to protect your eyes, because watching sun from your open eyes is any way harmful, whether it is eclipse or not.
It is harmful actually. Yes. So even for now, I'm using, this glass to watch the eclipse here. But for now, for our viewers, I'm bringing here the images which is being projected by the planetarium. There you see around 15 to 17% of the total eclipse that is visible on many projectors which have been, telecast here at planetarium and several other places wherever the solar eclipse is visible. Of course, this we are saying after 22 months. Last it was visible, I guess, around 23rd or 25th September 2019. And after COVID, this almost 22 months when the eclipse, it yet again visible in India. And now next, it will be really too long. And for now, as we know, there's a literally battle between the, the ancient science and the modern science, how people define, as many believe in faith, do not eat, people go to temple, offer prayer. But where the modern science says it's just, astrophysics movement that is taking place. So this is just another event which is unfolding, be it the solar eclipse and the other. So there you see these special arrangements in the national capital at Nehru Planetarium. Chaiti.
Absolutely, and thanks for getting us the do's and don'ts as well, because those are medically advised do's and don'ts as far as the solar eclipse is concerned, in terms of not looking at it from the naked eye, but using those special glasses to look at it. Abhishek Mishra also joins us from Prayagraj. Abhishek, what's going on at Prayagraj?
Well, as far as Prayagraj is concerned, you can certainly see that the solar eclipse has begun here at approximately around 4:25. It began and it's already going on. As far as the impact is concerned, it looks like it's approximately 18 to 20% so far, and it has been said that 32% of solar eclipse will be visible in Prayagraj. Now, as far as this particular city is concerned, it's a holy city, Prayagraj, and we have been witnessing from morning itself that the devotees who all have been coming here were taking the holy dip in the confluence of Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati here, which is unique in itself. It's only visible in Prayagraj, and soon after that the period begun, people, and specifically all the devotees who have come from different regions, were visible chanting Sri Ram, doing the bhajanas, and the kirtans were very much evident on the banks of river Ganga. But right now the solar eclipse is going on. It's approximately 18 to 20%, and you can see in the visuals how it will continue for about 5:27. So that is something which is the time, approximately 30 to 34 minutes.
Kids will be very curious. The young kids will be very curious, and this is something so interesting, because kids, when they're growing up, they love understanding how the science of all of this works. So are there schools, all right, let's take this with Dev right there. Dev, are there schools who are making all these strips for the students, explaining to them how the eclipse really happened, the science behind it? What's going on in Jaipur? Dev, can you hear me? Dev, can you hear me? All right, let's re-establish Dev in moments from now. Abhishek Mishra is joining us from Prayagraj. Abhishek, from an educational perspective, what have the schools in Prayagraj done to educate the students about this one-of-its-kind and last solar eclipse of the year.
Well, Chaitya, as far as educational approach is concerned, Prayagraj is particularly a holy city, and today because of the Deepavali, holidays are going on, so there has not been much of such event happening. Although there is a Jawahar Planetarium in Anand Bhavan, but that is also closed today. But whosoever is coming on the banks of river Ganga, they are witnessing it with using the specialized glasses. So that is something which we can see. But majorly, it's all about the belief Prayagraj has, and the people specifically. We witnessed devotees coming from Madhya Pradesh, from Delhi, Chandigarh, even from the parts of Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, and they have a belief that taking the holy dip at the confluence of river Ganga and Yamuna, it is something which can only get the benefit in Prayagraj. So that is something which is more evident. We have been witnessing about the kirtans happening here.
Religious belief right there, and that's the religious belief of the people. They're conducting all these religious rituals and ceremonies as well. We'll continue getting you more details as far as this is concerned. We're slipping into a break. When we return, Rishi Sunak takes charge as UK's new Prime Minister. It sparks a political war in India after opposition asked if something similar can even happen in India. The BJP hits back, citing examples of Manmohan Singh and Abdul Kalam.
You are watching India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
Audiotron.
Hang on, we're going to actually now start investing.
Rishi Raj in UK, Rona Dhona here. Diversity Brigade Wales and India. Sunak win triggers fake diversity despos. Netas use Sunak to decry the Indian system. Ignorant ammo just for political points. Big Desi war over Videshi Prime Minister. Our big focus on 5 Live.
And honestly, viewer, I can only feel sorry, and I'm sure you feel sorry as well, for those who feel the need to point fingers at the Indian political system just to score political points. And the ammunition they're using is Mr. Brown, Rishi Sunak, becoming the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Not through a popular vote, but because of the total decimation of that prime ministerial race within the Conservative Party. But that's politics for you here in India, especially in election season. The desperate are getting more desperate. I'm Shiv. This is 5 Live. These are the headlines. Rishi Sunak takes charge as the new UK Prime Minister. The third UK Prime Minister in the last 45 days. He sparks a political war here in India, his country of origin, after opposition leaders ask if something similar can ever happen in India. BJP hits back, cites the examples of Manmohan Singh and Abdul Kalam. Communal clashes in Vadodara, Gujarat on the occasion of Diwali yesterday. 2 groups clashed with instances of stone pelting reported. The police who tried to calm the situation were attacked with petrol bombs by an unruly crowd. 5 people have been arrested in connection with a blast which took place near a temple in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu on October the 23rd. The police are probing a terror angle. BJP accuses Chief Minister Stalin of downplaying the suicide terror angle. Out on parole, rape and murder convict Gurmeet Ram Rahim's fresh provocation. The self-styled murderer, rapist, godman held online satsangs and released new music videos after coming out on parole. That is the level of his shamelessness. World witnesses last soul